Retrograde Amnesia is a member of the Greenlit Podcast Network, a coalition of creator-owned podcasts focused on video gaming, entertainment, and pop culture. Go to greenlitpodcast.com to find out about all the great shows on the network. Hey, Eric.
Hey, Chris.
Do you want to record a podcast about Xenogears?
For the last time?
For the last time?
For the last time.
I do.
Would you also like to support it on patreon.com/retroam?
I would, finally. I think I'll sign up today,
Oh,
Chris.
Congratulations. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
It's been I've been trying to do this for a while, and finally I'm glad you signed up to
About
support
time.
me.
You recruited me.
Yeah, you can support me since I do all the work on this podcast.
That's right.
Speaking of, would you like to hear some hot sounds that somebody else recorded?
Yes.
Welcome to Retrograde Amnesia, a comprehensive podcast series about Xenogears. Tonight, we run through the cold of the night as passion burns through our hearts. And my name like a shadow on the face of the moon is Chris. I'm ready to fight with a knife at my side. The knife's name? Eric. Hey, Eric.
Oh, hey, Chris.
Good to see you again. Thanks for joining me.
I'm happy to be your knife.
Yeah, please be my knife. My, what do they call those knives in Evangelion? The vibrating knives?
Yeah, vibro swords or something
Those things
like
are
that.
fucking sick.
Yeah.
Also, like a proud wolf alone in the dark, with eyes that watch the world as we are joined by the Real Net. The Real Net is a collective of patrons who listen to us record live via Discord. They are good-looking and knowledgeable. You can join the Real Net at patreon.com/retroam. You're all nice people.
We are also sometimes joined by our post-production AI companion, the Fake Net.
Initializing fake net.
My cousin is the Terminator.
Hello, Fake Net. Good to see you again.
Hello, Chris. Topher.
The Fake Net's coming with us
Yeah.
on to the next series, right?
I was thinking about writing a skit where we kill it, but I don't think that'll be necessary.
Unplug the Fake Net?
Yeah.
No, Fake Net, we will not unplug you. You can come with us on our next journey.
I'll unplug you, you ungrateful
Also, I'd like to go ahead and, at the top of the podcast, give a humble and heartfelt thanks to everybody who listens to us. Like, it's 55 episodes now, Eric.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are still listening to us, we hope, by the time this thing goes up. So your engagement, your excitement has been absolutely essential to the success of the show, and we humbly thank you for taking this journey with us.
Yes, it's super exciting to have people listening.
Also, thank you, Eric, for being as dumb as me.
Yes.
And taking on the vast undertaking that became this podcast.
A dumb idea on Twitter that we thought would be funny has now consumed hundreds of hours of our life.
Yes, and it's so all-encompassing and all-consuming that we're going to do it again on another video game.
Why not?
Sure, let's just keep going.
I made good decisions in my 30s.
Yeah.
So where do we leave off, Chris?
Faye went to space after killing God. We have killed the bad god, the wrong god, the false god. We've killed Deus. Faye has flown into space after he got an idea, after he heard Flight play on his on his radio.
On his FM stereo.
Yeah, that Xenogears is the last working gear. And he's the only one that can go to space and save Elly from her sacrificial act.
Yes. So part of the exercise of this podcast has been to play it as an adult 21 years later with our adult brains and evaluate its merits on its own terms as an adult.
Yep.
Despite that, when the way this ending is framed, I still giggle like an idiot like I did when I was 16 because of how everyone in the ending is naked all the time.
Yes. Yeah, that's true.
I just want to look around like, was this necessary? Like,
Yeah. First, we get a new song.
Mm-hmm.
This game has, 50 some odd songs, and we're going to get 3 new ones right now.
Yeah.
It's great. The One Who Bares Fangs at God is playing when Faye emerges.
This music is good as hell.
don't know how to properly describe the song, but it certainly captures the feeling that we're reaching a culminating moment in both the span of this game and the span of the Fae lifetime.
I do find it slightly annoying that games always save their good tracks. I mean, I know you have to have a one-off track for boss fights in the ending, but I played Gran Turismo 2 around this time back in the day, and it saved its Foo Fighters song for the credits. And that's a game where you play hundreds of hours listening to the same 8 songs driving cars around a track, and it's like, could you all have not just cycled this in? Like, this music would have cheapened it to hear it throughout the game, but it's a good song.
It would have been nice maybe to hear this during the Wave Existence moment.
Yeah.
That would
have like synced it up nicely.
And it feels like we're in the Wave Existence, but we're not, because, well, for 2 reasons. We're naked, and this is the creation of someone else. We also see Elly, who is nude in a fetal position in a floating bubble of...
She's like a sphere.
Energy,
like
a ether.
A womb of some sort.
Yeah, exactly. Faye doesn't know where he is, by the way.
No. I mean, we don't really know where Faye is there. Like, he's in outer space, and now he's here.
Yes.
Magic.
I assumed that we were in the Wave Existence for the longest time, but the first indicator that we are not is...
a fucking face in the darkness.
He looks kind of like Zordon.
Yes, that's what I thought, too. I thought Zordon or Andros from Star Fox.
Yeah, that's another good one, too.
It's like a hand-drawn face, too. It's like a painting, almost. It's not like a polygonal face. It is a piece of artwork that they've got like a wave kind of effect on.
Yeah, maybe it's created by... It seems like it's a face that's been formed in a cloud or steam or something of that nature.
Yeah, like you see it in a waterfall.
Yeah.
Did you remember this face?
Not at first, but as we got a little bit deeper into this, things started to come back to me.
It took my breath away.
Yeah.
I didn't know that there was going to be a fucking face at the end of this. And, like, did you know who it was immediately?
I kind of knew who it had to be.
I thought it was the Wave Existence manifesting a human form.
Yeah.
But it was not.
Yeah. Faye realizes it, too. He realizes that this is not the Wave Existence, and we find out that it is Krelian. And, by the way, Eric, I don't know if you knew this, but Krelian is the villain of this game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think before we get a little bit deeper into what happens here, it is important to contextualize how I thought about villains at this time in my life.
Is it fair to call him a villain, or is he more of an anti-hero? We're talking about archetypes.
Yeah, I don't think he fits into either one. He's closer to a villain, I think, because, in my opinion, I don't think his sins are forgivable. Maybe that's a conversation we have a little bit later in this podcast, but I remember being kind of upset when I first played this game, when I got to this moment, because I guess my foundational RPG villain archetypes were Kefka and Sephiroth, and especially with Kefka from Final Fantasy VI, once you get to Kefka at the end of the game, you should, at least, if you've been paying close attention, you should have strong feelings about how much you want to kill that guy.
Yeah.
Like, he has no redeemable qualities at all. And at that time in my life, I thought that the amount of hatred generated by the villain was a good metric for a good villain.
Sure.
I don't think that's the case anymore, but I wanted to feel something when I finally overcame them.
Yeah.
And at this point in time, we've overcome Deus, who is not a thing, not a villain.
He wasn't really a character.
It's X-Death or the fucking thing at the end of Final Fantasy IV, or any of the sort of Final Fantasy-esque villains that just kind of show up at the end of the game. I mean, this Deus has more meaning than those, but it is in effect kind of the same thing. It has no persona or personality.
Without falling into debating literary tropes, would you say the line between true villain and true anti-hero is the rationalization of their heinous actions on a sliding scale?
Yeah, I think so.
Because Krelian had noble ambition. It's just he got so deep in his own bullshit that he didn't see the destruction that he was causing.
Yeah, I think
he wanted to reopen the economy at all costs.
Yeah, it's a
dated reference now, but
hopefully it is dated reference by the time people hear this, the final version at least. At that point, I was like, man, Krelian's not a great villain because I haven't grown to hate him over the course of this game. Whereas Kefka, you could grow to hate because he was on screen so much. Friend of the show, Patrick Holloman, actually wrote a book series called Reverse Design, and in his entry on Final Fantasy VI, pointed out that Kefka has more dialogue than any other character in Final Fantasy VI.
But doesn't everybody have more dialogue than everybody in those games?
Well, in Final Fantasy VI, yes, because it was
such a diverse cast.
It was a necessity to tie together the ensemble cast, but that was sort of my, for lack of a better term, foundational villain in JRPGs, and so everything up to this point was compared to Kefka, and I was a little bit soured on Krelian as a villain back then, but this time around, I felt that Krelian was. It doesn't matter whether or not Krelian is a hero, an anti-hero, or a villain. He's just a really interesting character that makes a turn and makes choices based on new information throughout the game. He doesn't always fall into that archetype. So I appreciate that about him.
You thought much more dimensionally about villains when you were younger, because at this point I was just like, must kill bad guy. Like, this is who the game tells me to kill. Why would I question this?
Yeah.
But my RPG palette was only at 2 games before this.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, I mean, even relative to Xenogears, there weren't a lot of contemporaries that had strong villains prior to the Final Fantasy VI and Final Fantasy VII, in my experience.
That's why you kill Magus, right? I'm sorry.
This is not a Chrono Trigger podcast.
Derail.
Magus is a pretty good analog to Krelian to a certain extent, but...
Is everyone beyond redemption?
Yeah. But I digress. I do like redemption stories. I just don't know if I can forgive Krelian.
You like redemption stories because you were raised Catholic.
Yeah. Also, I used to cheer for Rick Pitino.
Ooh. Iona's Rick Pitino. Maybe. So back to the nudity in the face.
Yeah.
So the first thing that I have down is he tells us that the Elly we're seeing is not a true being, that Faye is creating this image.
Yes.
Also, Faye is creating his own image, so it's like the training room in the Matrix, where it's the residual self-image thing where you appear as you see yourself.
So Faye is the one that wants everybody to be naked.
Maybe, yeah. That's a Freudian thing, right? Okay. Holy shit.
Yeah.
The study guide says that it actually does not say that Faye's consciousness created Elly.
Oh.
It says that the image of Elly was created by Elly, and that Faye is seeing the image created by her. So I think it's safe to assume that Krelian, who's at god level powers with all this shit, made his image the face.
Okay, gotcha.
Zordon.
Yeah. He wanted to add additional credence to what he's about to say.
Yeah, that's hardcore villain shit.
Yeah. And
like, if I could just appear as a hovering face, a hologram in this podcast, I'd do it.
Yeah. Well, that's one little check mark there in the villain column there for Krelian.
Yeah.
He tells us something very important. He tells us that the path of Sephiroth has now been connected. No one can stop God from returning to his world now. And then Krelian asks Lacan why he has come to this place.
Brief coherence check. So Faye took Xenogears to space. Elly rode the spaceship to space. How'd Krelian get up here? Was he in?
He was already here. His plan.
Did he go with Elly to?
Yeah, he was already sort of in. Like, Elly is controlling. Elly, as part of the Deus system, is sending it to space. Krelian is. He sort of injected himself into the Deus system because he is waiting for the Zohar modifier to be destroyed so that he can merge with the wave existence.
Okay.
That is what he means by telling us that the path of Sephiroth has been connected. Like, he's able now to connect with the wave existence. And he hasn't taken that final step yet, but he wants to do, again, a villain thing and let us know what his plans are and sort of circle back with the hero and with Elly, for that matter, before he takes that final step towards the true God, the wave existence.
I also thought it was interesting, maybe it's a sign of him losing his humanity or just a bad localization. He called Faye Lacan here. I think the speech.
He does too, and he also does in the a little bit later in the voice acted part.
Like, he's starting to lose his sense of time and just sees the contact as that being, as the person he first knew as the contact.
I read it a little bit differently. It's just because Krelian and Lacan were bros.
Yeah.
Like, they were close. So I think he just naturally is addressing Faye as Lacan. And for all intents and purposes, Faye is Lacan at this point in time.
Yeah,
like
true.
He has that
as well
piece,
as.
Yeah, he has that piece of the soul, and he's aware of it at this point in time. So I don't really read Faye as, or solely speaking as the Faye character. He's just the sum of all the parts at this point in time.
And at this point in time, what is Faye's only motivation? What does he tell Krelian he wants to do?
And interesting, we just had that conversation about Krelian addressing him as Lacan, because I started to address him as Lacan in my notes.
In your notes? Okay.
Yeah, and I put, Lacan says that he has come here to take the person he loves back with him.
Absolutely. Rescue that damsel in distress.
Yes, he's got to do it because that's what the narrative says that has to happen since the beginning of time.
Yep.
Also, even if that wasn't the case, that would probably be the case here because Takahashi and Tanaka have turned Gnosticism into a science fiction system that must be fulfilled. So probably would have had to have happened anyway.
I would like to read Gnosticism according to Xenogears if it were fully fleshed out, like those Bibles that are written in like modern 90s teen parlance.
Do they still make those?
Yeah.
Okay.
Those are still around. And they're still in the 90s. Like the cool Bible.
Faye's kind of in a position, he's like, well, we've killed Deus. What?
Yeah, we did it, man.
What are you doing? Like, you've got nothing left. But I don't think that Faye has really connected the point to where he fully understands that Krelian is also trying to make contact with the wave existence.
Yes, he's trying to hitch his wagon to the fourth dimensional being and travel the stars.
Yeah, which maybe we'll figure this out by conversing about this throughout along the way. Or maybe the real net knows. But when did Krelian become distinctly aware of the wave existence?
He must have had a conversation with Groff at some point where Groff did a villain speech to him and delivered information about the wave existence and the contact and the reason for the Diablos core. That, or maybe Miang told him.
Yeah.
Like he couldn't have had first contact at original contact himself. I'm betting he was learned, it's like when you read about the old legends and try and do your experiments to make it happen.
Yeah.
That's just how I see it, because I don't think the game ever actually explicitly says that.
At this point to Faye, it seems as if there's nothing left for Krelian to accomplish here.
Yeah.
Like he's like, well,
can I have my girlfriend?
Yeah. What's the point here, man? What are you going to do? And that's when Krelian says that he's heading back to
Cali?
To where all things started. And
the birth of humanity.
And I'm like, oh, so this whole fucking thing, Krelian, was about you.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't about the girlfriends you couldn't have.
I'm sure that factored in.
You're being upset, being broken, being sad. It's about you. This is when things sort of started to shift for me, is that Krelian needed to revive God because he needed somebody to destroy the Zohar modifier so that then he could release the wave existence and make contact with it for his own purposes, to heal himself, basically. I think he's so fucking sad and has just been swimming in despair for 500 years that this is the only drug he could have
to get high off of at this point. That's all he had left.
He could only get high off God fumes.
Is he the bad manager, incapable of doing the work necessary, so he commands underlings to do it and doesn't care how many get killed in the process in order to meet his quota for the day?
Managers are no longer needed, but
yeah.
actually, there's just one Burger King manager left. His name is Krelian.
He goes on to tell Faye about the birth of humanity as leftovers from the pulse of the wave existence.
Yeah. He mentions that he wants to he specifically calls this out. He wants to get back to the point prior to the existence of the four-dimensional universe. What's that?
The four-dimensional universe? That's where the wave existence is from. It's a place that we can't quite perceive in our three-dimensional world, right? Like, isn't that always like the secret of the fourth dimension is when you try to think about that? Or to me, quantum mechanics, your brain just starts to do the Homer Simpson thing where it shuts the door and walks downstairs.
Okay, that helps. But also I need to understand what's the point before that. Is that the primordial soup era?
The LCL pile?
Yeah, or is that pre-Big Bang, maybe?
Pre-Big Bang is an interesting topic because I don't want to think about pre-Big Bang. I can't.
Okay.
I can't.
All
it's
right.
right before K. Let's just say phase out of MP on that one.
Well, Krelian helps me a little bit by delivering the following line and says, humankind and the souls of humankind are merely leftovers of those spilled waves. So think about like a bowl of soup. And you know how when you fill your bowl of soup up...
I don't eat soup. Just want to point that out.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to be on the record saying soup's a waste of time. Go ahead.
Can you picture a bowl of soup, Eric?
Yes, Chris.
Okay. Porridge? Can you picture...
Is it like thick soup?
Yeah. Okay, you fill it up too close to the top, and then you pick it up to take it to the table, and then it kind of wishy-washies to the side, and a little bit of the waves of soup dump out.
The wave existence.
Yes, exactly. But whatever leaks out of that soup before it gets to the table, that's what humanity is. Like that's...
Oh, good analogy.
That's the insignificant...
We're the crap.
Yes, we're the shit. Like you're still going to get a whole meal. Like the amount of calories lost from spilling that is just completely insignificant to the grand scheme of keeping your body alive. That's what we are.
Neato.
We're fucking scum, man.
Whoa. You telling me I'm the crap?
Is this a definition that you accept, that Krelian is rationalizing his actions with?
No, he's not rationalizing. He's just trying to describe to Faye the strength and the magnitude of his destination.
Okay, so these are two men trying to understand each other, and they will never be able to, and we're just about to go sort through that with various dialogue options here?
Options is not the right word here, but we are going to try to sort through it, because you're right. There is two very distinct worldviews that are going to come at odds here during these final conversations.
My next line, either Krelian or Faye expresses disbelief with that's where the other one wants to go. Doesn't Faye like, I want to go back? And he's like, what the fuck? Why would you want to do that?
Yeah.
Why would you want to go back?
Faye basically says, what the hell, dude?
Yeah.
Krelian's trying to say, I don't want this. I want everything. I want the origin of everything, the origin of existence. I want to be in the soup. Krelian doesn't quite understand why Lacan wants to be part of this, quote, wretched world.
Wretched old world.
Yes. He says, what meaning can be found in living such a short existence? Hurting others, hurting yourself, grinding one another down, only to inevitably return to dust.
Krelian looks at Faye like I look at people when they tell me they don't like chicken, chorizo, and queso. Where I'm like, how the what? Have you tried it? Do you know what that tastes like? We can go have this anytime. You don't want to go have this?
Yeah.
So Krelian has some kind of, explains his psychosis around that time where he wonders how one can find meaning in a world with such a short existence, a world where people hurt each other, a world where people hurt themselves and grind one another down only to die and return to dust no matter what. And he concludes, like we said, that any kind of love experience on the mortal plane is inferior to the love of a god. And my first reaction was, oh, this explains religious people to me.
Yeah.
When I'm like, please don't give me this speech, and they just keep going because they want me to understand this point.
Yeah. Please listen to my podcast.
Yeah, exactly. No, listen to me. But Faye hasn't lost hope in humans, and he hopes that one day they won't do that shit to each other, which is any kind of peacenik kind of cause.
You know what Krelian is doing here, right? He's sending Faye down the Shinji Ikari path of denial / self-acceptance.
Yeah.
Like, make a decision here.
Mm-hmm.
Faye doesn't need 2 episodes of a mindfuck anime to make up his mind. He's already made up his mind. He has an answer right there, and he's lived 1,000 lifetimes, and he's had the ability to think this through.
Yeah, and Faye also, in the history of this game, I think throughout all of his lives, doesn't really see gray. He's a big yes or no type person.
And you know what? It's interesting, too, because Faye, prior to becoming a perfect contact, would have made the same quick response.
Yes.
He would have been like, fuck that. And now that he has lived 1,000 lives, he also says, fuck that, which is kind of a neat thing to think about in terms of what's even the point of owning all these souls.
With Krelian, at this point, before we get too deep into it, needing Elly to come with him, you said he was free of all the rejected love girlfriend shit, but wanting that person to come with him, isn't that an extension of she should be my girlfriend?
It is, and he brought Elly here. Well, he brought Elly here because he needed to revive Dave.
Yeah, she was a vital part for that. But at this point, having fulfilled that role, what is the point?
Yeah, you're right. I think he still wants to take her, but I think through the conversation that he's about to have with Faye, that he eventually realizes that that's not necessary.
Yeah,
which is weird because back in the days of in the era, the original Lacan era, he was very cognizant of the fact that Sophia had feelings for Lacan and not him. Like he was cognizant of that 482 years ago or whatever. And he's still wrestling with that to this point, I think.
Yeah, men typically don't take rejection well. Yeah. Imagine that.
In fact, Krelian says, and this his next couple of lines, that's what calls me to question the fact on whether or not he really even thinks that he still needs to take Elly with him at this point in time. Like maybe he's come to this realization since he discovered the way of existence. Maybe he didn't discover the way of existence till this moment. And, time kind of stops when you're with the way of existence. So he very well could have had these long conversations with it before Faye got here, because he's like, hey, dude, we don't need to worry about chicks if we go here because God will love us no matter what. Like we don't need chicks, man.
The love of a God is all that you need.
Yeah. But Lacan believes that people will learn to understand each other at some point. And the point is here, Faye, Lacan, whoever you are, is that we learn that we can't really understand each other fully as humans, but we try anyway.
I think that's the struggle of humanity.
Yeah, that's part of, and that's kind of touching on underlying thematics of this game here, right here, is sort of this debate is the theme of the game. Krelian tells Faye, and me for that matter, that most of what Faye's worldview is basically a facade, and that we can't truly know each other because we stop at a comfortable distance and call it mutual understanding, spiritual unity, or true love.
That would get 1,000 retweets.
God, yeah. Krelian would be great on Instagram, actually. Krelian calls all these things lies. They're all bullshit. He says, quote, man cannot associate with others without first deceiving themselves. That is the way they were created.
This is, well, when he says that reminds me of the kid who is Do you ever take a philosophy class in college? There was some people in that class who was really into it and into debating the topics with the teacher, and I was just there so I won't get fired.
Yeah. Faye's counter is, but one being's ego can't determine everyone's fate. He's telling Krelian that, yeah, I mean, maybe that's the case. Maybe life is hopeless. Maybe life is sad, but it's not for you to determine when it can and cannot be wiped out.
They're basically start opening the argument of destiny versus free will.
He gets into a little bit of a wank libertarian state here, and he says, people have the right to choose their own destiny. That is why humans have free will. And how do we get back with Krelian here? How do we get back with Krelian's wankery?
I guess another word for libertarian wankery is determinism.
Yeah.
Where he wonders if humans are primitive life forms with no such thing as free will, that man has always lived in an imperfect state. It is for this reason that man must experience sadness and loss.
Yeah.
For one to gain, another has to lose. The only solution is to return to one. So I kind of am on board with that for a little bit. And a concept explained by our friend we don't have anymore named Chris Smith, we would often talk about the concept of karma. And he would explain to me that karma isn't direct person to person. It is global karma, whereas one person can benefit greatly and then other people a country away can suffer greatly. Like that's how the transaction works.
Yeah.
But for Krelian just sees it as a more personal thing, where men have no free will and are not responsible for their own actions since it's all controlled by fate. So he's trying to break away from that fate by becoming one with God. Faye, dick out, tells Krelian that it's cool if no one is perfect because that means that mankind has to live by helping each other, and that defines unity and love.
Yep.
Two one-winged angels.
Indeed. At some point during this next piece, the camera begins to pan down across Krelian's ghost face, and Krelian asks about, well, what if the will itself is predetermined? And Krelian doesn't believe that humans have free will. He calls it a folly, is the word that he used.
That's a word he would use.
It is. Mankind has merely been allowed to live in an imperfect state. Then he says another line that I have a lot to say about, so buckle up. He says, the wretched will makes us experience sadness and loss. Here, Krelian seems as if he does not accept sadness and loss as an outcome that he should have to experience. He sees it sort of as a zero-sum game, like for someone to gain something means another must lose it. It is impossible to make humankind share limited things and affections. And I call that bullshit because existence itself is not a zero-sum game. Like I can be happy and you can be happy, right?
Right.
Only if we're on the same podcast. No, Faye calls it bullshit, and I agree with Faye here. It is bullshit. Like the existence is not a zero-sum game. Krelian reads it that way because he sees the world being predetermined as something that exists as a vehicle to serve him sadness and loss, and he wants out.
I guess if you live for 500 years, eventually the pattern of your behavior starts to be dominated by certain emotions, and for Krelian it was definitely sadness and loss. So in his point of view, that's what he thinks all people experience because his brain has been corrupted by the compounding of time.
Yeah, that's also quite true. These reasons that he states here are the reasons why he has decided to take the Gendo Ikari path of returning everything back to nothingness.
Yes. Which some would just see as suicide.
Yeah. The scene changes then to a nude Faye looking at the nude Elly bubble.
Yeah.
Nude Faye gets on one again. He says that being imperfect makes humans have to help each other. That's what being human is. I think that's the
angels.
The angel conversation. That's that is the whole dream / creed of Sophia herself.
Yeah.
Lacan also says he's proud to be human, and this is fucked up. He's coming from a guy who lived and died 1,000 times and has a backlog of 10,000 years worth of sadness. Like that is the ultimate optimist there. Proud to be human. Also, I have seen my girlfriend / mother die 1,000,000 times.
Also, him being reborn like that gives him a period of ignorance before those past lives are reintegrated.
That's true.
If they are, and Krelian hasn't had that.
That makes me wonder, is the contact simply somebody who can live multiple lives and still have hope for humanity?
Also, is Faye the first one to know he's the contact?
Yes.
Okay. The freshness of his amnesia and ignorance still must have a presence in his mind.
Yeah, or he's transcendent.
Yeah.
Lacan then additionally challenges Krelian. He says that Elly is trying to take Deus away to save humanity and to help him see the value in being human. He sort of owns Krelian here a little bit, and he's like, why do you gotta merge with God just to fucking understand this shit?
Yeah.
Like, these concepts are very fucking simple, my guy. You're so fucking stupid that you're unable to understand anything unless you literally merge with God. Like, how dumb can you be? Faye then says, she and I are one, we don't need God's help. And that is a very Gnostic line. It begins to touch on one of the game's primary themes. And I'm not an expert, or maybe I am. I've done 55 episodes of a podcast on this game. I think one of the game's themes are, we're humans. It's okay not to be necessarily spiritually whole with one another, but the fact that we seek connectedness with each other makes us human. The very, very Gnostic part about that line is, we don't need God's help. Like, we have this connection, or we seek this connection between us, and that is how we achieve spiritual enlightenment. We don't necessarily have to get there, but we seek it. That is our humanity.
So Faye is the guy that says, I don't believe in God, but I'm spiritual.
I mean, I
understand what that means.
Isn't that what Gnosticism is, kind of?
I think so.
I mean, Gnosticism kind of acknowledges the existence of, the gods in the ether and whatnot, but it's telling us that we don't need anybody to help us get there. It says we can do this ourselves. We don't need God to start a podcast. We could just start one.
Yeah, let's just buy some equipment.
Yeah, sure. It's all we need. Start a podcast for like $40 if you wanted to. Then the scene shifts slightly as the ghost face looks down to Faye.
Krelian wants Faye to prove his side, to show him the power of humans and love.
Yes.
That can make humans independent of God. So you know what that means, right? When you're in an RPG where there's fighting mechanics, the only way to prove it is to fight.
Well then, prove it to me. Show me this power of humans. Show me the power of this love that you say can make you independent of God.
Huey Lewis already told us about the power of love.
Also, that's true. Also, I had a bit of when I read this line, I had a bit of a revelation, or maybe another memory unlocked. I'm unlocking so many memories with this game, by the way. This is maybe the moment that led me down the path to becoming an atheist. like this moment right here.
Damn it. All right.
So here we are.
So as soon as he says that, some kind of creature rises out of the water. Golden wings, blue hair, and an orange segmented tail.
Yeah.
It has 2 arms and it seems feminine.
It does. It looks a little bit like the mother, the original mother from the anime, and that we've seen in a couple of glimpses throughout the game.
We will determine the power of love through battle.
We have to. It's the only way to do it.
What is this thing called?
It's called the Urobolus.
And this operates in the classic form of, there's always an indeterminate number of battles at the end of an RPG. This was really before the era where there were like 6 or 7 of them. But this obeys the archetype of weak-ass battle after a hard battle that's essentially impossible to lose, right?
Yeah, this is a story battle, basically. Yes. Faye, remember, he's just standing here naked, right?
Yeah, is this real? That's my next question. As he gets back in Xenogears, does he conjure that too? Is this like a mental fight that he's imagining?
I don't think it's real.
Like, is he taking a shower and imagine fighting the battle?
He kind of floats up and just summons Xenogears, and then all of a sudden he is inside Xenogears, and the boss battle begins. What do you make of the this boss being called Urobolus? It's very confusingly named. I don't think it fits where
that's like the snake eating its own tail thing, right?
Yeah,
the circle.
Yeah,
where it's like an infinite being,
right?
Mobius strip.
It feels like this thing is supposed to be Miang, but I thought the Urobolus factor was
like
Elly.
Opiumorph. It had like the reptilian tail.
So maybe it's just poorly named. Because I think Urobolus was supposed to signify perhaps the Elly factor, not the Yang factor.
I pictured the reptile nature of it as snake-like and evil. It even has that constriction move where it grabs Xenogears and squeezes its tail with electricity.
Yeah.
Right? So it does have some satanic qualities to it, maybe?
Yeah. Maybe it's a literal representation of the Demiurge here.
Yeah,
which
possibility.
is sort of the false god.
Somebody had to design that with intention.
Yeah, and the Demiurge itself in many Gnostic texts was represented by a serpent or the serpent from the Bible. So there's a lot of different ways you could read this, and there's a lot of different ways you could read it from Gnosticism just because the Demiurge is represented in so many different ways. I think Xenogears maybe does all of them because Yahweh is sometimes considered the Demiurge, but so is the serpent. And I guess Takahashi was like, fuck it, throw them all in here. Sure, why not? So yeah, we do a boss battle.
We beat the shit out of this thing.
We do. The one fun thing that I did here is that I didn't really remember if this was going to be an easy battle or not. It did a move that lowered my defense. Mm-hmm. So I did inner healing to restore the Gears defense, which is something that you can do in this game that not that you really ever need to do it. Mm-hmm. I think building attack levels is more important. When I did that, I was already at attack level 3 and casting a heal spell put me into an infinity mode.
Oh, nice. So that's still factored in as like an attack turn.
Yeah, so you just have to take a turn. You don't necessarily have to do an attack. So I thought that was neat. But eventually you just beat the shit out of it with some sick combos, beat up God, and it wilts.
After the battle, Elly is hovering in her sphere. She busts out and hovers naked in front of Faye, like at eye level with her waist section. Like she doesn't return to the ground. She's just hovering in front of him. Treasure which cannot be stolen plays, and Elly confirms that Krelian released her.
Yes.
Signifying that Faye, through the power of battle, has proven his point.
He's proven his point. I think Krelian finally is like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, you should go with her. I don't really know. I think he was already leaning down that path.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think he was sticking to his guns throughout the whole conversation with Faye. And finally, through this giant robot battle, which was probably not really a physical battle, it was probably just more of a additional philosophical tangling between...
Battle of wills.
Yeah. And now he's decided that perhaps he can release her. Elly says that Krelian's heart was so full of sadness that he desired for her and he to become one with God.
This is when she was one with Krelian.
Yeah. I guess this was when she was merged with the system.
I apologize to keep returning to this angle, but this is like Krelian saying, only me and the girl who rejected me can become one with God.
Yeah. It's kind of fucked up.
Yeah.
But...
like, this is like a kidnapping scenario, right? Like, this is what the fucking dude says to justify his actions for his heinous crime.
Yeah, it's abusive.
Yeah.
There's no way around it.
Against her will.
Yeah. Krelian, at some point during either the battle or during the conversation, realized that Elly should be with Faye. It's really weird that it took him to this moment to do so, as I said before, because he seemed like he was already beginning to understand the Lacan/Sophia connection back then, and it took him an additional 400 some odd years to get there. But sure, buddy.
Elly tells Faye to forgive Krelian and that he loved people more than anything else.
I don't know about that, Elly.
That's what I was going to say. Like, my brain is fucked up to where I occasionally think in emojis now, and I immediately thought of the emoji where the guy's touching his chin in the thinking pose, which people use sarcastically for false points all the time.
Think of it this way. This might help you rationalize this. Elly's not speaking as Elhaim Van Houten here. Mm-hmm. She's speaking as Sophia.
Okay.
And well, yeah.
Genocide. Hello.
No. I get that. But, like, remember, Sophia died at the moment before Krelian started all the genociding. Like, she knew him at the monastery when he was in charge of the monastery core there for Nissan. So she had a personal connection with him and maybe understands how he was before his soul was corrupted.
I know,
here.
and I'm sure that someone may have been a good owner of the Texas Rangers, but he's also responsible for Iraq, and you got to judge him by all the things he did.
No, I totally agree with you. It's just that, like, there just may have been a moment, because Elly's also a combination of all the souls now too, so there may be a moment of empathy here for him.
It's like Krelian's entire thing was the ends justify the means and determinism, but Elly still, like, presses and asks for forgiveness on his behalf.
Yeah, and she even apologizes.
I didn't see the ending going this way. I thought he was going to be like, yeah, fuck you, just you win the girl and you go back home and screw the villain who just apparently just went off on his quest, right?
Yeah, and I think that's what I kind of wanted when I originally played this game. I wanted to say fuck you to the villain.
Yeah,
I didn't
especially
want it
when you're 16 or 17.
Yeah, I wanted him to meet his end and for him to crumble away.
I must be the victor, the powerful victor.
Yes, I wanted to. I watched that new Star Wars last night. I won't go on a huge digression, but the culminating moment of that movie, like when the movie ends, when the bad guy is defeated, that's what I want as a 16-year-old. That's what I wanted to happen to every villain.
That's a really good analogy.
Yeah, that dramatic villain crumbling moment to occur, and it didn't happen here, and it left this moment sitting strangely with me originally, but now I love it.
I think it's more thoughtful and considered, but at the time I think it weakened Xenogears' ability to be fondly remembered by a larger group of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Elly then apologizes for trying to do what she's been doing since the beginning of time.
Sacrificial stuff.
Yes, sacrificial stuff. And she's apologizing maybe because she put all these people in danger, but also maybe she's coming to the realization that the sacrifices that she's made throughout her life, or throughout her existence, I should say, have been twisted and contorted. And one of those particular sacrifices, the sacrifice of Sophia, ended up being the origin story of two bad guys.
Yeah.
So now she's like, maybe one of those bad guys is out of the picture now. Maybe I should not have done things this way. It's at that point, I think, after many lifetimes, she seems like she's finally able to realize that she should follow her own goddamn advice and live.
So I just had a unique thought.
Yeah.
Elly says that all of her sacrifice led to sadness, then gave birth to more sadness. So I'm trying to connect some ideas here. Do you think, first point, the Elly archetype was flawed into potentially a suicidal destiny? And the reason why I think that is I've been thinking about Solaris a lot, the Steven Soderbergh movie that's a remake of a Russian film.
Yeah.
George Clooney, spoilers for Solaris, his life on Earth, his wife committed suicide. Then his wife appears again in Solaris mysteriously and then keeps killing herself.
Yeah.
And that's like character flaw that she's bound to. And I wondered if maybe Sophia, sacrifice in her case was always toward a noble end, but if that was kind of an inherent defect, that was some destiny that she couldn't escape. Like she always had to do that until I guess Faye came around and made her realize that her life was not her own.
It's the idea of the Gnostic Aeon and the Syzygies. Remember that from way back in episode 8 or 9 or whatever? The Christ and the Sophia, two emanations from the same Aeon that have to sort of, it goes back to the fucking one-winged angels, right?
Yeah.
She, in order to come to the realization that she does not need to make a sacrifice, or as you said, be suicidal in order to reach that noble end, her living is just as important as everybody else living. It took that existence to this moment, basically until the man came and told her that, that it was one way or another.
That sucks, but I think they conclude that love is complete when there is a giver and a receiver, when two have become one, like the Spice Girls said.
Yeah.
Which is the theme of Xenogears, ultimately.
Sure.
Well, you're not a big Spice Girls fan? Your wife doesn't play it in the car all the time?
No.
Your life isn't mine?
No.
Great.
It's not. We both fell out of the same soup, though. Elly's sort of retracting a little bit here in feeling bad for all the sacrifice stuff, and then he begins to remind her that sacrifice is noble.
Mm-hmm.
And the quote there is, love gains its original shine only when there's an interrelationship between the giver and the receiver. It is incomplete when one or the other are missing. The two are one, which again goes back to that, the whole theming of everything's becoming whole again. Faye admits that Elly is the one who taught him this, and that's what it means to be human.
Don't they conclude that they will find the answer to what Krelian was looking for in themselves?
Yeah. Faye says, what Krelian was looking for all along, we will find the answer to it all ourselves. In essence here, both Krelian and Faye and Elly found their particular brand of gnosis. There are 3 brands of gnosis. There's the Krelian gnosis, there's the Faye Elly gnosis, and there's the Big Joe gnosis.
Of course.
Because of their unique relationship to the wave existence and the Deus system, Faye and Elly found answers. Humans should rely on each other. They don't need God, whether that be a regenerative weapon system or a spirit that exists beyond the physical realm. They don't need any of that shit.
Yeah.
They have each other. Krelian's gnosis was a little bit different. It's you have to reach a little bit. Like his gnosis was found and fueled by an intense sadness and regret, and then he used science and technology to reach.
He should have used therapy.
Yeah. Hey, he had nanomachines after all. I'm sure he could have, done something with that, but he used all that stuff to reach God. They both made it there. They're both standing right there at the precipice of uniting with the wave existence.
So we're all about finding God and becoming one with God here. At this point, I think in your life, you were becoming one with anime, which was also God.
Yeah.
And now we're about to experience the second longest anime of this game.
How do you feel about anime? Want to start an anime podcast?
No.
Good.
Hey folks, it's Asif Khan, CEO and Editor-in-Chief over at shacknews.com. Give a listen to our 9 to 5 Elon podcast about Tesla and electric vehicles and all sorts of cool stuff over there on the Greenlit Podcast Network.
The award-winning Go Nintendo podcast covers the latest Nintendo news while also diving into what's hot in pop culture, music trivia, hands-on impressions, and so much more. Hopefully we can make you laugh, too. You'll find new episodes of the Go Nintendo podcast on the Greenlit Podcast Network every single week.
Guess what the anime gives us, Eric?
Blue pulsing.
Blue pulsing and a new song.
Mm-hmm. What song is this, Chris?
It's called The Beginning and the End. It's kind of wacky. It's kind of scary. It's kind of spooky. There's a lot of chanting in the background.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me feel like, hey, we're at both the beginning and the end. The first thing that happens is, yes, as you said, the pulsating. There's some upside down silhouettes of Faye and Elly going through this pool of, I don't think it's physical water, but it looks like water. It's like ether water.
Well, yeah, Elly stops hovering and joins Faye on the ground or ceiling.
Yes. Faye says,
let's return to our planet.
Out of nowhere, a bright light emits from the sky. There's no explosions yet, but there's just a bunch of twinkling and ether-esque things going on in the background. Elly is kind of silent in his surveying the situation.
It looks like the cliff from A Nightmare Before Christmas, where it's this long, curled kind of mass.
Yeah. I assume this is the same area that this whole in-engine conversation between Faye and Krelian took place, right?
The imaginary ether.
Yeah, okay. Elly says,
That light. It's the point of contact with our world. But the dimensional shift has already begun. Will we make it in time?
They may be stranded. Something I never want to hear anyone say in my life is the dimensional shift may have begun.
Yes. It's not every time that Gilgamesh is going to show up and look for that dimensional vortex for you.
Yeah, that fucking sucks. I don't want to deal with that ever.
Yeah.
Faye asks her Elly a question that in the imaginary plane, I'm not sure if it's relevant, but what does he ask her?
Maybe they're constrained by their...
They have to obey the rules they set up?
He extends his hand and says,
Can you run?
But can you naked run?
Yes.
Not comfortable for either gender.
Elly says...
If we're together, I can.
Yeah, I mean, more one-winged angels, right?
Sure, right, yeah. I mean, again, the hand pulling her up from the ground symbolism.
When was the last time you held hands with somebody and ran at full speed?
Oh, God. It's been a long time, Eric. What about you?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I think we did 2-man Red Rover on the asphalt in grade school, so it's a possibility with that.
Faye and Elly then become panty, and they run as fast as they can, and at this point in time, like the fake world is starting to crumble beneath them, right?
Yeah, there's also a giant light covering Ellie's
privates.
Yeah, private parts, so that she can be on screen.
Yeah, so she can run fast.
There's a lot of explosions, and then the spiral dissolves.
Yeah, things are really bad here.
Yeah. I don't understand why this is happening, other than I know the dimension is collapsing, but what the fuck does that mean? Is their grip on this mental energy is collapsing, or the physical space they're in is collapsing? Yeah. Are their actual bodies suffering danger, and they're experiencing that through this imaginary world?
I think that's a good question. Are their physical bodies actually here, maybe? Or
no, but are their physical bodies somewhere else, and those are becoming endangered? So as a response mechanism, their mental area is becoming endangered as well. What they're imagining, they're experiencing is a path to escape.
Or their consciousnesses are in danger of never being able to return to their physical bodies.
That's probably it.
I think that could be the case too.
Elly falls.
Faye then jumps towards her and
jumps undersells it. He Superman dives.
Yeah, he does. He Superman dives.
Yeah, as he does the dive, it's actually a really cool catch where he yells her name and then catches her and hugs her in the same motion.
Yeah.
Which seems like it would have hurt at the speed he was running, but I guess he has a soft touch.
Yes. He's smooth as shit. And there's a pulse or a shockwave or something that kind of comes and starts destroying this. They're not, I wouldn't call it a meteor. They're on a flat, rocky surface.
Yeah.
I think the anime here is trying to communicate danger to us, and the only way to communicate danger to the viewer here is to show characters in physical peril, even though this is more of a mental peril of them never returning.
It's a mental peril expressed physically.
Yeah. And then at some point they begin to fall, right?
As they fall, they're captured by a sphere and phased out to a floating asteroid.
It's almost like somebody catches them with a ball of ether magic or something. And
floats telepathically moved them.
Yeah, it's a very anime delivery device. It's probably something that's been used in a lot of anything that deals with magic or martial arts chi or anything like that.
So who apparently did this?
Oh, hey, it's Krelian.
Krelian, introduced via bare ass.
Faye says,
Krelian, you.
And then discovers that Krelian is the one who saved them, which I guess at this point in time means that Krelian has changed his mind. Not only has he changed his mind, but he's also developed some sort of soft spot where he wants to allow Faye and Elly to return to the world and to live.
Yeah. We thought he had taken off and moved on, but apparently he stuck around, perhaps just to witness what was going to happen to them and save them if necessary.
Which is an odd turn, too, for a villain, too, because he's already...
He's made him understand the power of love through battle.
Very true. Very true. That actually was going to be my question. Why did he make this turn? He already has everything that he wants.
You have done your heroic action and defied him and proven the victor, so he has to bend to your will. That's how storytelling has to work, right?
Yep. Krelian says,
There's no time. This place is about to be destroyed. Now there is no more God. This is no longer their planet. This is your home planet that you are now standing on.
Yeah, and he implies by saying it's your home planet that it's not his anymore. He's not coming.
Faye says,
Krelian, you aren't going, are you?
No.
Then he starts to have some interiority here, I guess.
He's gazing toward a blinking star in the distance.
Yes. He says,
Since that time, I have stopped being human.
That time is when he quit the resistance, right? On that battlefield where he just kind of talked about his first proto-rant and then walked away.
During this little monologue here, we see two specific flashes from his past. One of them is him from the back doing his Sermon on the Mount where he says, I will create God with my own hands.
Mm-hmm.
And then we see some flashes of some experimental fetuses.
Oh, in his lab.
Flashing in the background to note his two sins were his rebellion against the surface dwellers and then the experimentation and the genocide that he has on his hands.
His actual friends and then humanity as a whole. Micro and macro.
Yeah, and speaking of... yeah, exactly, micro, macro. Speaking of, he says, I've
committed so many sins that any attempt at living like a human was impossible. The only one who could have forgiven me was God.
Only God forgives.
Only God forgives.
Only God forgives.
Faye gets up and Elly begins to follow. This is maybe the first time, maybe in forever, that Faye's answer is not to beat ass. His answer is to push back on Krelian. He's getting a soft spot for Krelian. I guess that's the Lacan speaking here. He says,
That's not true. I know they would understand. There's still plenty of time to atone for your sins. You, of all people, could do it.
Faye's being quite forgiving.
Yeah.
Here.
Chris, we're not religious, but do you believe if you were at the time that any sin can be forgiven, or there's just some stuff that's beyond the pale?
I think it depends on your particular denomination, but in terms of your redeemability as a human, I think yes, there are things that are not redeemable, and I think Krelian has certainly crossed that line.
I think actions maybe cannot be, but a person can be rehabilitated. I don't know. I'm not really qualified. I don't know why I asked you that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm not qualified to answer it either, but at least from my personal view, certain actions can be forgiven.
I would have told Krelian to get the fuck out.
Yeah. It's fuck it, dude. You found your God. Go.
Just please leave. Please leave.
Go snuggle with God.
Yeah, Krelian's I can't go. He has to go walk with God.
Krelian's response here is pretty interesting. He says, and I think Krelian's response here also confirms that Lacan was the one sort of speaking to him in that past line. Faye, if it was only Faye speaking here, it'd be I'm going to beat your ass, get the fuck out of here. Yeah. But Lacan was the one that wants to show kindness and the ability to forgive. Krelian says,
Always the peacemaker, eh, Lacan? Perhaps that's what it means to be human. But regardless, I cannot go. It's something I've already decided. I go to walk with God, even if there's no place left for me upon my return.
So I understand why he said that, and there's nobility there, and that is his ultimate conclusion of his character arc. But it's a bit I never went to these parties, but in movies, there's always some guy at a party who fucks up and they tell him to get the fuck out. And he says, well, I was just leaving anyway. That's kind of what Krelian's doing here. It's yeah, I know. Please leave. Please leave. Walk with whatever.
Also, the implication of a potential return or a way back to the physical plane. I don't know if he was planning on returning or not, or if it's just something that's lost in translation here. I didn't find anything in the study guide about this particular line, but I think it was meant to be read as ambiguous. Krelian then says, I must go now. Faye calls out to him.
I must go now.
Krelian!
And Krelian turns as he's sprouting fucking angel wings, both of them.
Made of light.
He's the anima. He doesn't need the animus. He's both.
It is interesting that he has 2 wings.
Yeah.
He doesn't require any of this shit.
Because he's there. He's found God. The villain, if we're still reading him as a villain, he's won. He's got what he needs.
Yeah.
And he says,
Actually, I envy you too.
is perhaps a signifier that maybe he has at least some regret that he couldn't find out how to be human ever. Mm-hmm. He lived for 500 years and he could never become whole with another human, or at least try to seek a connectedness.
So for me, 2 interesting things happen when he does this. One is feathers fall, and that'll become important in a minute.
Yep.
And it fades out. But 2, when he says, actually, I envy you too.
Yeah.
This blew my mind, because at this point in time, back when I was 16, the only anime that I had seen was when our buddy Kyle showed me Twilight of the Dark Master.
Oh, wow.
Which I'm sure is like not a popular thing. That was just something that he was very attached to.
Yeah.
But I remember 2 things from that movie. One was the quote, fire manipulators.
Yeah.
And then 2 was the line, actually, I envy you too. But it wasn't from that. It was from this. I had false memories of a different anime thing that I attributed to the wrong thing.
Wow. Which
is a very personal thing, but I wanted to share that shock and revelation.
I think that anime does end with somebody snapping away the universe.
Yeah,
so
of course.
Kind of.
Maybe they actually say that. I don't know. I have no way to watch that right now. The fallout of this is light explodes above the planet and sends out pulsing waves, then disappears. And then we go back to the planet.
Yeah.
Sidon runs up and screams Faye's name.
Faye! What happened?
Yeah.
Bart, Maria, Billy, Rico, and some guy with a laptop are here too.
You know who I think that guy is?
Bingo?
It's Bingo.
You think it's Bingo?
Bingo is picking up some hot sounds. It should have been Franz, right?
Yeah, it should have been Franz, but I bet that's harder to draw.
Yeah. Bingo says,
waves from the explosion disrupted the ionosphere, making it impossible to get a visual. They were probably caught up in the explosion.
Wi-Fi's down.
Sure. Bart's here. He's a total surfer.
He's holding up a fist.
He's wonderful here. He says,
That's a lie! He'll come back. He promised us he would. I know it.
That's really logic that held up a lot when I was a kid. Is, well, he promised, so he has to.
And that literally happened in the moment before Faye took off to space. He promised Bart that he would be back.
Yeah, he set that up.
You don't promise your bro that you're going to be back and don't come back. Come on
Absolutely not.
And adult Emeralda notices something in the sky here. But I expected maybe them to not show Emeralda. Mm-hmm. It's like how the Final Fantasy VII cutscenes don't show Vincent and Yuffie. Yeah, because they may not be there. But I guess the game's just going to assume that you found that as a boy side quest to make Emeralda an adult, because she's definitely looks like a teen here. I'm glad that she was the one to first start to notice something in the sky. Later, she offers a bit of a smile. And if you really think about it, Emeralda is maybe the most connected person to Faye and Elly.
Yeah, biologically and maybe emotionally. Before she sees it, there's a scene with Xenogears plummeting to Earth in a blue protective bubble.
Yeah, we get a glimpse of it. It's like a second. It's just like a Xenogears sort of doing the re-entry thing where it's coming back through the atmosphere, heading back down towards the Earth at an extremely high speed.
I'm glad gears were constructed to deal with re-entry friction.
I think my read here was that Emeralda was beginning to notice this. She was the first person to see it, but also another person that's very close to Faye noticed it. It's Choo Choo, and Choo Choo begins to say choo 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 and fucking bounce away. Choo Choo hops off. Sidon looks into the sky. That is when the ending theme, our final new musical track, begins to play.
Small two of pieces.
Small two of pieces. Bart begins to notice that the thing that's falling from the sky is Xenogears, and he screams, which is just Japanese for hey.
It's his Japanese voice. They just left that in.
They didn't dub Bart saying hey. They just left him saying oi. Which, you know what?
Like, fuck it.
Bart as first of all, fuck it. But Also, Bart as an English speaker would probably also yell "oi" instead of "hey," just because he is. I love that they just left it.
I would love for that to be an oversight. Like, I don't know, man. I'm not deleting that. Just
also, and I don't know why they would have done this, but Choo Choo's voice is exactly the same in the Japanese ending as well. So they didn't change. They didn't localize Choo Choo. Then Xenogears begins to slow down and approach the Earth, and kind of its wings are extended.
It sprouts angelic wings. It's revealed that Faye and Elly are safe inside the cockpit, and then we get a unique point of view as it's got a top-down view of Xenogears with the gang running below them.
Yeah, Faye and Elly smile to the party. The vocals in the final track begin to ramp up, and the end credits begin to play.
And then, that's it.
Run through the cold of the night as passion burns in your heart. Ready to fight, a knife held close by your side. Like a proud wolf alone in the dark, with eyes that watch the world. And my name like a shadow on the face of the moon. Broken mirror, a million shades of light. The old echo fades away, but just you and I can find the answer, and then we can run to the end of the world. We can run to the end of the world. To my heart in the blue of night, torn by this pain, I paint your name in sound. And the girl of the dawn with eyes of blue and angel wings, the songs of the season are heard only crowd. Broken mirror, a million shades of light. The old echo fades away, but just you and I can find the answer, and then we can run to the end of the world. We can run to the end of the world.
Eric and I shed single solitary tears.
Yes, I cried out of my left eye. Chris cried out of his right.
Yes, it's because we're secret half-brothers.
Well, it's because we're the two angels with one wing.
Yes, we did it. We made it.
I like how restrained it was, and it didn't give us a happily ever after. It was just kind of implied.
Yeah, it was restrained and simple, and I think maybe that...
It was effective its budget for limited anime.
Yeah. I think that maybe rubbed me the wrong way, too, when I was a kid.
Yeah,
because I was
used to get ultimate resolution.
Yeah, in the Final Fantasy VI ending was kind of like that. Like, there was still, like, you were just... experiencing the moments just after the final boss battle, but those moments were long and drawn out. This one was quick. It's like you're still trying to process all the things that Krelian and Faye just talked about, and now all of a sudden we're back and it's over. And it was just a lot comes at you at once.
As children of the Western world and Western media, we were trained. Our brains were trained to expect complete overabundance of resolution and not constructed for ambiguity in fiction.
Yeah.
So I can see why that wasn't necessarily as big of a hit. I mean, I guess Final Fantasy VII had that too when it just showed Red 13 in the future. Like, maybe humanity did die, but that still provided some kind of concrete resolution as opposed to implications and smiles.
Yeah. And that was only a year before this. Like, we hadn't had a full lineage of RPGs.
I mean,
to give us...
do I need to see Bard High Five Faye? Yes. But is it okay that it's not there? Yeah, sure.
Kinda. Yeah. After the credits, there's a brief scene where the camera is sort of panning across the earth.
Yeah.
The Catamony is on the edge of a cliff overlooking just the wilderness, basically. I don't know why that was included. I don't know if it was supposed to be symbolic of the first man overlooking...
I mean, I think that's the spot where Miang landed, right?
Yeah, that was the birth of humanity.
Beginning and end.
Yeah.
A glowing feather falls. And who just left a bunch of glowing feathers?
It's Krelian.
Krelian. Is that symbolic of one made it here from space, or my dude's back trying to witness this shit? Ambiguous.
Ambiguous indeed. Yeah, it's hard to say.
See us in episode 6.
Yeah, see us in episode 6, because as soon as the credits end and this scene is over, the game ends. It says Xenogears episode Roman numeral 5. Let's play 6 next for our next game, Eric.
I do think that is before the age of post-credits Marvel teasers. Like, that was a unique hook for a further episode, right? Like, this feather falls down. I didn't remember that at all. Yeah. That was a shock to me that is clearly an indication of potential villain return type stuff.
Yeah, and anything that could have come next would always be speculation from that point on in history, because The Perfect Works was like, yeah, we don't really know much about episode 6, so we're not going to tell you anything.
Yeah, the lore Bible says, yeah, we don't know.
Yeah, but that was definitely a shouting moment for me when I finished the game. Like, oh man, there's going to be more of these. The story will be completed. We're going to
play. We need to undersell that. When you play this game and watch it and the credits roll and it says episode V, you're like, what the like, I remember using my AOL internet to Google, like, were there like Super Nintendo Japanese games on this that I missed or something like that? Like, that information wasn't out there.
You can only have that experience if you played the game during its original release window.
Yeah. And when this was built, this was around the time when the Star Wars original movies were being remastered. And as you know, when they remastered A New Hope, it was called Episode 4 A New Hope.
Right.
Implying that there's 3 before that. So it's either a clever flourish to make you think that there was a great past before it or after.
Yeah.
Or it's just, a product of the time.
When this game was printed to the disc, they're like, we're not fucking done with this. It's just that it didn't happen.
Yeah, Square made sequels to their RPGs.
Yeah.
Fucking Saga Frontier was a sequel and got a sequel.
Yeah.
Fucking Mana got a sequel. What RPG series, like, did Bahamut Lagoon, like, what?
Yeah. Well, it didn't happen. And we can be sad about it for the rest of our lives. So are you ready to consult the RealNet, Eric?
Sure.
Initializing RealNet.
The RealNet is a collective of patrons that listen to us record live on Discord. Alter Impulse says Krelian is having a Gygas moment. I think in reference to the final boss of Earthbound.
I've only played Mother 3.
Weird. Quickstacular says Krelian is more shades of gray. Kefka is black and white. You just love to hate him, which is something that I really loved to hate villains, I guess, as a teenager, which sort of soured the way this game wrapped up for me originally. Now I love it.
The world was very much good and evil back then.
Yep. Alter Impulse says, I think that Deus was actually fairly well built up, actually, if you go from the perspective that he was pretty much the prime string puller that manipulated the entire planet into becoming his parts and tools.
I think Deus becomes that way with the reading of Perfect Works.
Yeah, that's true. I think originally, and I think this is in reference to the fact that I said something about Deus just kind of being a blank slate final boss.
Yeah.
And I think Alter Impulse is right here. That was a little bit unfair, an unfair judgment on Deus.
It could be worse.
But to your point, Deus doesn't become as interesting until you understand the Deus system and all the things that went into it.
Yeah.
So I think as a teenager, I just wanted to go kill the guy who had done me wrong.
Yeah.
And Deus was not necessarily the best proxy for that as the way I originally read this. Cliff Racer says, at the end of the day, Deus was just a machine carrying out its programming and was as much as a cog in Krelian's plan as Krelian was in his, which is an interesting way to think about the symbiosis of Krelian versus Deus and how they kind of played each other to their own ends.
Mm-hmm.
Krelian ultimately won out, obviously. Alter Impulse says, honestly, I think Krelian feels worse to me as an adult who's aware of the shit like male violence in society and incels and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Dude is straight up like all of those nice guy or incel guys who are motivated by their entitlement to women and their attention and their rage at not getting it.
Krelian put so many friendship tokens into Sophia.
Cliff Racer says, I always saw Krelian's relationship with Sophia as a philosophical/religious rather than a romantic or sexual, like Lacan's is. I think that's the reality of it, but that's not the way Krelian saw it, I think, is probably my read on that.
I mean, if you have the opportunity to be loved by the girl who lives throughout time, like that, or man, whatever, like that kind of puts them on a pedestal that they probably don't necessarily deserve, and they can, I don't know, I think Krelian's problem with the Sophia character is undercooked in this game, but I wish there was more there to build his motivation toward that kind of pairing.
Yeah. Carfo says, I agree that he's referencing him as Lacan because that's how Krelian remembered him as.
Yeah.
And since all incarnations share memories, you could call him by Abel, Faye, or any other incarnation that would still be referencing the same being in this case. And this is a good point from Carfo. I said something like, how did Krelian become aware of the wave existence? And Carfo says that he thinks that Krelian got a hold of Raziel's tree at some point.
Yes, I agree with that. He had to have.
The question at that point is, does Raziel's tree have information on the wave existence? Or
it's a lore machine, right?
It is a lore machine, but like I wasn't quite sure if, like, you remember how we talked about how the Dave's system sort of accidentally sucked up the wave existence? Mm-hmm. Is it aware that it's there? Or do they just think of it as a infinitely powered machine? Cliff Racer says, Krelian is a Karen so powerful he seeks to speak to the universe's manager.
Yeah.
Quickstacular says he needs a different haircut then. Cliff Racer says, I think he's using four-dimensional universe to refer to ours with respect to time. When Krelian was talking about returning to the place before the four-dimensional universe, he was trying to return to the place that existed prior to our 3D universe plus time equals the four-dimensional universe, which is what he was referring to. I agree with that.
My guy loves the x-axis.
Quickstacular says, Eric.
Hey, what's up?
Pho. Is that how you say it?
What?
The dish?
Yeah.
P-H-O. Pho is served.
I thought it was like pho, but
pho?
Sure.
Soup is not a waste of time. I will fight you.
I will battle that. Soup is a waste of everyone's time. If I want to drink liquid, I've got a cup of water. I don't need oils and other waste of time in it that I can just pee out. I require sustenance in my nutrition. This has been my speech on the uselessness of soup.
Congrats. Cliff Racer says we've been using soup analogies when we should be using Tang analogies.
This ain't no game.
On the concept of Urobolus battle, right? Alter Impulse says, I think this battle is actually in Faye's mind, his breaking the connection with Elly and Miang, or trying to do so. Like trying to free Elly from being part of Miang. Or it could symbolize the overcoming of the factor in the collective unconsciousness, humanity being free from the Urobolus factor, ending it with Elly. Or they just had to throw in one more fight with Miang. Alter Impulse says, I think it's like Elly/Sophia actually happens to be really codependent and too giving, and the upcoming dialogue even hints at it. She's so sacrificial that she will do anything, as in all of her incarnations, including this one, getting killed over her man. Basically, she needs to be broken out of that. Cliff Racer, again, another great point. You can't be Jesus if you aren't all forgiving.
Yeah.
Which
that's a great point.
In reference to Lacan/Faye trying to forgive Krelian. Oh, here's a good comment from Quickstacular about the track of the beginning and end. Quickstacular says, the beginning and the end is my favorite song in the whole thing. Bulgarian choirs for the win. Quickstacular says, in reference to the line, if we're together again, she thought it was, if we're together, I can, which actually makes more sense.
Yeah.
In reference
with
to...
with the theme of the game, too.
Yeah, in reference to running naked in the dimensional vortex.
On my list of things to do.
Alter Impulse says, I think it could be consciousness not returning to physical bodies, that Faye has run out of strength to power the gear back to the planet in terms of getting back outside of the dimensional vortex at the end of the game. And all the visions of grabbing for Elly and trying to run about his body is his body trying to give out. Alter Impulse says and shows proof that when Xenogears is floating back down to Earth in the anime, there's a certain frame when it forms a 13-point star. I don't know what a 13-point star is, but that's cool.
Initializing RealNet, future time travel.
Alter Impulse says, oh, this is interesting. This is in relation to the 13-pointed star. And it says, spinning away from engineering towards religion, we note that Judaism considers 13 favorably. The Torah explains that God has 13 attributes of mercy, which are referred to by the circles in the Kabbalistic Metatron's cube. In fact, there are no biblical references to suggest that 13 is bad or unlucky. Quite the contrary. Alter Impulse also says, via a quick Google search, that the 13-pointed star can mean immortality or completion. All right. That's all for the RealNet. Thank you, RealNet. We always appreciate you joining. Please join us again on our next series, Eric. Season 2 of this podcast, Retrograde Amnesia, is coming soon. After this podcast is released, it will be covering the video game Chrono Cross, which our patrons / the RealNet has chosen in a fair and valid election. Thank you for listening. Stay tuned for the outtakes. This episode and this series has been a production of Retrograde Amnesia. Thank you, Eric, again, for all of your hard work editing the podcast. Thank you, Mark, for the intro track. Find us on Twitter at RetroAmnesiaPod. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. If you like the show, please consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/retroam. Get early access, bonus episodes, mini-series, and more. If you have questions or feedback, email the show at retrogradeamnesiapodcast@gmail.com. As always, shout out to the RealNet for joining us live tonight. Until next time,
we've killed God and we'll move on to kill fate.
And now you may go back to sleep. We're killing fate next time.
I know fate's in that game. I don't remember if it's the last battle or not. I thought it was a good tease, right?
I think that's a good thing.
I just improv that like 10 seconds ago.
Thematically, yes. I wasn't sure if you were going to say we have killed God.
That's what I said the last time.
We've killed God and we've...
I should have said we've killed God and we're going to kill fate. You want to try that again?
Until next time. I was just going to see if you were saying anything else.
I have to fart. You want to do that?
No, I don't want you to do that, Eric. Please don't. Until next time. It's over.
Do you feel like you just threw the ring in the volcano?
Sort of. Yeah, I'm really, really, really excited to start doing another game.
I'm excited to do another game with dialogue that moves faster.
Yeah, that's true.
Also, Terranigma.
Initializing FakeNet.
Terranigma is a Patreon exclusive bonus miniseries.
Yeah, Terranigma. I know very, very little. I think there is some support for us doing a podcast series on pivot tables, by the way.
I refuse to know what that is. The last time I wore this shirt to your house, you pointed at it and said, I told you we had a shirt that said fuck on it.
So at this point, to Faye, it seems to... Nope.
Take two.
You just actually unlocked a memory for me. I was walking back from my car back to my dorm room when I was in college, and I passed a guy that was in my philosophy class. That was that guy who was really into it. I also worked with him, so I knew him a little bit. And I had skipped class that day to go buy Tekken 4.
The king of Iron Fist Tournament 4, Tekken 4.
And I was walking back to my dorm, and
with Tekken 4, were you holding Tekken 4?
Yeah, and he goes, "Hey man," and I held up Tekken. I was like, "I had to get Tekken today," and he just kind of rolled his eyes at me, and then here we are. Wonder if he has a podcast now.
Doubt it.
About video games, video game. Are you ready for
let's go.
Let's go. It really fucked me up that I took all my notes as Lacan and not Faye. It's fucking me up right now.
It's fine. I'm glad we did this as its own separate podcast and not in addition to the other podcast.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We definitely needed all the time for this one. All businesses should be open. That's not what he says, but interesting that you read Krelian as the one who wants to open all the businesses, and I read this line from Faye as one. I don't think that that's Faye's actual worldview, but he just gets into a little bit of, personal liberty conversation there. You just unlocked another memory.
Yeah, let's do it.
We can put this in the outtakes. Our friend
involved Chris Smith.
Yeah, he also. I think he was the primary person to come up with this, but he and I kind of came with this concept. This was in college where we called it cosmic precedence.
That's it.
Fuck. Is that what you're referring to?
No, I just remember. Yeah. Go ahead, please.
It was essentially like if two events were happening side by side, the universe would dictate which one gains your attention. So if you and I are having a conversation, then all of a sudden, a security guard hits somebody with a billy club, which happened on the regular at the place that we used to live at because it was like a college party apartment place and it was horrible. Then that thing took cosmic precedence, or just a group of loud talking college girls walked by and we were having a conversation, but their conversation was so loud that we couldn't ignore it.
That's cosmic precedence.
We would stop having our conversation and just listen to theirs and then realize 5 minutes later that we had stopped talking.
Yeah.
That is cosmic precedence. Doesn't happen here in this game.
I miss that dude.
We should call him. We should get him on our podcast.
Yeah.
He doesn't really play RPGs. He plays Tetris. Yes, we have a boss battle. The money line before the boss battle is, well then, prove it to me. Show me this power of humans. Show me the power of this love that you can say, fucked it up, man. It's like Aladdin on the magic carpet where like he swoops up and I'm wearing an Aladdin shirt tonight, by the way.
That's beautiful, Chris.
Maybe that's why Aladdin's on the mind. I think there's a moment where Aladdin swoops up on a magic carpet. You know what? It doesn't fucking matter.
Sure. But what does matter is the June Mermaid plays, as Elly confirms.
No, it doesn't, Eric.
What?
Are you sure?
I mean, I always question motives here, but I was almost positive June Mermaid plays.
I have Treasure Which Cannot Be Stolen.
That's also a possibility.
Which I wrote down, Treasure Which Cannot Be Stolen is a good song for this moment.
I thought June Mermaid was out of place. Maybe it was Treasure.
Good thing we have an AI companion.
Initializing fake net.
It was Treasure Which Cannot Be Stolen. Why would it be June Mermaid, you dumbass?
That is when the ending theme, our final new musical track, begins to play.
Small 2 of Pieces.
Small 2 of Pieces.
Tyler from Xenochat tweeted that out like a week ago. That it wasn't Small of 2 Pieces, it's Small 2 of Pieces. And that blew my fucking mind. I know. I've always read it as the other one.
I was like, surely his track listing is wrong, but I went back and
checked it and I was like, fuck.
Yeah, Small 2 of Pieces. Cliff Racer says, and maybe this is something we want to carry with us, Eric. I don't know. We'll have to talk about this. The Fate Net.
Oh, shit. For Chrono Cross?
Yeah. Flint says, I wish I could join, but I'm having a class. I hope you do well in class.
Followed by Squeeze-Its?
Oh, yeah,
for sure. Faces. And I really appreciated the faces on Squeeze-Its.
You could really jettison the liquid into the back of your throat. And
yeah, man. Squeeze that shit out.
Yeah. Quickstacular says, the tip-off for the Bulgarian choir, it's the Bulgarian, the language.
Oh.
They're singing in Bulgarian.
On every Ladytron album, there's at least 2 songs in Bulgarian, so I apologize for not recognizing that.
Damn it.
Shepherd.
Shepherd.
Shepherd. Shepherd.
Shepherd. Shepherd. Shepherd. Shepherd. Shepherd. Shepherd.
Shepherd.
Shepherd.
Shepherd.
Shepherd.
Shepherd. Shepherd. Shepherd.
Shepherd.
Shepherd.
Shepherd. Shepherd.
Shepherd.
Shepherd.
Shepherd.
Shepherd.
Shepherd.
Shepherd. Shepherd.
Shepherd.
Shepherd.
Shepherd.
Shepherd.
Shepherd. Shepherd. Shepherd. Shepherd. Shepherd. Shepherd. Shepherd.
Broken mirror, a million
Well, Eric, it's over. What are we going to do with our lives now?